friends, because it goes through a lot of trial and error and a lot of knowing who I want to align myself with. And Keto Brainz is fantastic. So go and grab it because your brain needs it. Trust me. On days when you just need to level out, and on days when you're feeling good and you want a little bit of extra rocket fuel in the tank, and it's not no 5-hour energy or anything like that. It's lion's mane. It's L-theanine. You know, it's MCT right out of the coconut tree. So check it out. The link is in the description below. Everybody gets 20% off with the Quite Frankly code, and if you become a monthly sponsor, you get a recurring 20% off. But that's a secret code I have to give you because we can't let that get out. In fact, we have to change it every couple of months to make sure it stays exclusive. So that's all I have for you right now. That's all I have for you. Reminder that Rockfin is gone. Okay, no more Rockfin every night. I'll be reaching out to those people just to let them know, hey, that we're not gone. We didn't end the show. That didn't happen. But yes, so Rockfin. Oh, I have a birthday over here. Listen to this. This is from Matthew. To Frank, the 26th is my stepmom Phyllis's birthday. She couldn't care less about me and my dad Eli wishing her a happy birthday, but to get a happy birthday from you would really make it special for her. She's officially 90 years old today. And pretty proud of that. Most women don't like sharing their true age, but she tells everyone, I'm going to be 90. Now, the real question is, when do women become proud of their true age? Across the board. I know there are some of you out there who just don't give a shit. I am what I am, and that's it. But there is a threshold where the older you get, it becomes an accomplishment. I'm 87 this year. I'm 90. I'm 12,000 years old. I mean, that's just, wouldn't you want to tell somebody you're 12,000 years old? The real question is, where is the threshold where all women are confident and happy with how old they're getting? What is it? Is it 85? Is it 78? I don't know. All, because I know there's many of you out there who just like, hey, I am what I am. It's all good. Thank God I'm getting older. I could have died young. You know, that's the, ain't that the truth of it, man? I saw, what's her name? Michelle Tranchberg. I forget what her, but I remember watching, she's my age. She's 39 years old. Watching all those kids films that she was in, I remember all those. Harriet the Spy, she died. I said, what the hell happened? Apparently she had a liver transplant or something. Like, geez Louise, man. Jeez, it's awful. Awful to hear shit like that. And, so, but anyway, Phyllis says, Phyllis, I just want to wish you a happy birthday, Phyllis. God bless you. 90 years old. And just wear that on your sleeve and have a great time. And I can't wait to hear about Phyllis's 95th, her 105th. It's going to be a great time for Phyllis. And thank you, Matthew, for letting me know. Okay. With that being said, I want to just throw this up to the grab bag. Here is from the Financial Times. Financial Times, the political rise of the anti-vax movement. I just want to throw this out here for a little bit. Just very strange. This whole thing is still very strange because, like I said, I remember liberals being the people who, when I was growing up, I saw them as like the tree huggers, all natural with everything. They're not wearing bras. They're not getting any shots. They're going to let nature take its course. They're fighting for everybody's individual rights to not do this and that. That's what I remember. Okay. Very free spirit kind of stuff that actually made me uncomfortable to a degree. But and then I was like, why wouldn't you take vaccines? But apparently they knew something back then that they just completely have forgotten this time around. But that is the Financial Times. So they're talking about the rise. This is what it is. It's political anti-vax movement. And the wild thing about this is that knowing that they used to have a preference, at least some of them, to avoid vaccination, now they want to stab you with needles. And in some cases, that used to be the fringe. That used to be the fringe. I'd rather not get into that, and I'm going to go live in a commune in the woods somewhere and among the redwood trees. I want to live like an Ewok somewhere in Northern California. I get it. Fine. Not harming anybody. you got a very utopian view of the world. As long as you just stay out of everybody else's wallets, then you go do it. And I actually give you a lot of credit for doing it, because it takes balls. But then you have what's going on in Maine, and you can see what progressivism, what liberalism is now. And this is from, I think, Breitbart. 57 Maine school districts hide children's gender dysphoria from their parents. Democrat Maine Governor Janet Mills is attempting to thwart federal civil rights law to allow the grooming of children in schools. In Maine, where gender and queer theories reign supreme, at least 57 of its 192 school districts have policies that exclude parents from knowing whether their children are starting to identify as transgender. Exclude parents from this psycho-emotional crisis that their children are having because they want to be able to foster this psychosis inside of children and enable it. Okay? And not to say that most of this situation, most of this kind of condition with children out there, most definitely is enabled by parents who are absolutely out of their minds. Out of their minds. They're the biggest villains in all these things. But I have to imagine that this is almost like a hedge against some parents who still have their protective instincts intact. And that's what's going on in Maine. So, the weirdest thing you used to see out of them used to be, their preference to avoid one shot or another and, live in the woods somewhere and let their tits hang low. But now they want to make sure that you're fully inoculated with whatever the hell gets crapped out of some laboratory somewhere. And they want to transform your kids into whatever the hell Ninja Turtle or Saturday morning cartoon that they like the most. It's very strange stuff, but at least it is becoming less and less taboo to poke back at it, and that is a good thing. Most definitely a good thing. Here's something for you. Jeff Bezos at the Washington Post has done something that made a lot of people scratch their heads, at least some people that are working there and whatever's left of their subscriber base as well. Here it is. This is from Zero Hedge. What the actual F? WAPO reporters melt down. Editor quits after Jeff Bezos makes a hard pivot toward, quote, personal liberties and free markets. Remember when the Washington Post refused to endorse Kamala Harris in a home stretch of 2024 election and the entire organization went full Handmaid's Tale? Now multiply that by 100. For his second act, owner Jeff Bezos announced on Wednesday morning that the Post's opinion pages will be writing every day in support of defense of two pillars: personal liberties and free markets. Okay? He said there was a time when a newspaper, especially one that was a local monopoly, might have seen it as a service to bring the reader's doorstep every morning a broad-based opinion section that sought to cover all views. Today, the internet does that job. I am of America and for America and proud to be so. Our country did not get here by being typical. A big part of America's success has been freedom in the economic realm and everywhere else. Freedom is ethical. It minimizes coercion and practical. It drives creativity, invention, and prosperity. Sounds like Milton Friedman, doesn't he? Now, if I saw, I can't tell you how many people I saw that work there and also subscribe to the Washington Post that were tweeting the screenshots of their cancellation of the subscription and all that stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, I said, well, individual liberty? Free markets? F this, I'm out. That's what many people said at the sound of that. What was it, a dog whistle for MAGA? Individual liberty, free markets? I mean, and let me just say, even if this is just shallow marketing by Jeff Bezos, who owns a property that if it's going to be a profitable venture ever again in a meaningful way, yes, it's going to have to try to appeal to different audiences and try to widen out and not be so, tunnel vision, crazy lib. I understand why you would do it from a business perspective. Is it real? Is it all, I don't know. Is it just shallow marketing ploy, which I naturally assume it to be? It's just interesting to watch how some people, or how allergic some Americans, have become to even the idea of this being true. and not some dog whistle. Individual liberty, free markets. Oh, late stage capitalism, late stage of this and that. I mean, it's really crazy. It's crazy. So, I mean, I'm not going to be subscribing to the Washington Post home delivery anytime soon or ever. But it's just interesting to watch people respond to things like this, no matter how shallow they may be. And there you have it. Elon Musk reveals the real reason for his "What did you do this week?" email. That and much more I would like to do in the second half after our guests, Diamond and Leah, depart. And you know what? At some point tonight, I'm going to throw open the hotline and we're going to try this again. If anywhere along the lines in tonight's interview, you have a really great question you'd like to pose to our guests, please write them down. And then when the hotline goes up on the screen, call in and let's see if this works, because we conducted a flawless test with Diamond, Leah, John Carroll calling in on the hotline. Everybody heard everybody. There was no glurp. Are you there, caller? It was none of there was none of that. So if it happens tonight, it's just I'm going to have to get this place exorcised again. I'm going to have to call up Reverend Bill Bean and say I need an exorcism. I don't know what else to say. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!
Gets suggested to people, especially those who subscribe voluntarily. As sick as it is, that's just what it is. But you can send in your thoughts to quitefranklysuperchat.com until I make another attempt to get our super chats back on YouTube, because several people have gotten theirs. So why not me? But I have to wait until every warning and every strike expires first. I'm a couple of weeks away from the last one I got in December for medical misinformation. For what? I don't even remember. Or was it that Kamala Harris video? I think it was the Kamala. No, doesn't make sense. It was something in December. That would have been earlier on. Anyway, so that's what I have for you tonight. A little bit of a reminder how to contribute to the show if you're not calling in. All right, so what do we have? I want to tell you a little bit about our guest this evening, and I thought it was really, really cool. It actually made me go and do this. Whoa. Actually made me go and do this for myself and for, quite frankly, they threw into Grok. They asked Grok, hey, tell us a little something about the Oppenheimer Ranch project. And I'll read the Quite Frankly one later on. The Oppenheimer Ranch project is an initiative led by two individuals, David Diamond Moriello and Leah, who are working to create a self-sustaining homestead and organic farm in the high alpine wilderness of southern Colorado, specifically in the South San Juan region. So this is a big thing here, a very big thing. Homesteading is popular right now. People are wondering about this being the ultimate hedge against where the hell, what's going on in the world, and how can we make ourselves safe from it. The project began as the couple opted out of their previous urban lives to transform over 50 acres of pristine land into fully functional homestead. Their efforts included constructing an Earthship residence. Guys, what's an Earthship? Leah, hold on. Let's just stop right there. Leah, what is an Earthship? You first.
Well, to be honest, an Earthship is actually something we're not building right now. But an Earthship is essentially a south-facing structure that is built into like a berm or a small hill. Usually the back wall of an Earthship is constructed of tires. So you get this big wall with a lot of mass. You have all glazing all across the front. So all of the light that is coming into the building is being absorbed by that back wall, and that provides all of your heating for that building, for example. Typically they'll incorporate a greenhouse on the front, and the idea is that you can grow a lot of your food in that front greenhouse. Turns out that it's not a full solution to living, but you're well on your way. You have ventilation using earth tubes that helps regulate the climate in there. Usually there's a water catchment system, so it's a very self-sustaining kind of structure.
It seems so. And I know that this is and Diamond, are you there as well?
Yeah, well, actually, what we've done instead of building the Earthship is we researched all the technologies that exist, including passive solar and other designs, and we've incorporated that into our structures. All of our living spaces, and the one we're building now includes a south-facing greenhouse, which provides geothermal heat for the rest of the building, and obviously food, so you can sustain yourself through, the entire year. So we do have Earthship technology. We just didn't build an Earthship.
Is that the ultimate goal, though, to kind of like to cap this all off and have it be classified as that toward the end? Because what I'm reading here in your grok is building geothermal greenhouses. You're talking about that, planting crops and trees, digging wells, installing off-grid solar power, and cutting roads and trails. How much, if you're going to say on a progress bar, how much are you guys away from being able to say we accomplished all this?
That's really hard to gauge, because we've been doing this for 10 years now.
Yeah.
And, plans change and morph and transition, but I don't know. I'd say maybe we're like 70% there.
Okay.
What do you think, Diamond?
Yeah, to being 100% sustainable, maybe a little less. We still have some fences to put up and get animals and finish this barn dominium here. So we maybe 60% finished, but you're really never finished. It's a lifelong endeavor. If you're a homesteader and you learn new things, learn how to wildcraft or wild harvest new things, or there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can incorporate as you go. You keep the good stuff and repeat it, and you throw out your failures.
It's right. Yeah.
We've changed, lots of certain kinds of plans, right? Like we have lots of chickens. We recently added rabbits. We're going to do sheep in the future, but our plan before was to do goats. There's a lot of various reasons why we decided that sheep are a better option for us, and you learn a lot as you go along.
Now, how did you two meet? Were you? And I know the last 10 years you've been in Colorado, but I think that you guys are around the same area I am in the Northeast. So, how did you meet, and when did this vision for your collective life's work really come together?
Well, I came to know Leah because in 2011, I helped start the March Against Monsanto, which was the first global march against genetically modified organisms. And I was the leader of the march in Philadelphia. And I had a lot of public exposure, and a lot of activists at that time learned who I was. And I think at that time she learned who I was.
I remember the March Against Monsanto. I remember this because I remember around that we were already broadcasting and we were updating people on where these marches were going to start, and it was very important. This is when we were starting to realize just how bipartisan the scam was. How like Roy Blunt in Missouri was very big part of protecting Monsanto, and you see that there really was no party line that you could really rest your confidence in that somebody was going to do the right thing. So, man, it's really incredible to hear how long you guys have been at it.
Yeah, that whole story of Monsanto being in bed with the FDA and the sort of the revolving door of the people who become heads of those agencies and then leave and go back to the private corporations, and it's on repeat. It's the same thing with the CDC. It's the same thing with the EPA. And both political parties are completely in bed with that process. So as far as regulation of anything goes, it's largely all hogwash.
So around 2011, you guys met in the middle of this kind of activism then?
It was a bit later than that, but yeah, somewhere around that time, I think in 2013, we did the March Against Monsanto together.
Yeah.
Was that 2014? I can't remember. And it was huge. I mean, it was awesome. And it's amazing, right? Because this march went right by, all of the corporate media offices, ABC, NBC, et cetera. And did they cover this event, this huge event? We had thousands of people. They didn't cover it at all. You
Wow.
know, but the beautiful, really redeeming part was just little things like we made this little flyer that was just, you know, little facts of information about Monsanto and genetically modified organisms, just a tiny little flyer. And we flyered thousands of cars, and we had people like contact us and say, wow, I didn't know any of this. And I just, you know, I just picked the flyer up off my car and I didn't know any of this. And that was the redeeming part of it all.
That may be the last time in history where people, I think the last era in history where people would take things off their windshields and actually give it a look. No,
Right.
nothing like that works anymore. I've tried to put so many business cards and stuff into people's hands. They don't give a shit. Nobody cares. But
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
incredible. So, I mean, what kind, now I know that David has a geological background. Leah, you are a science and physics. What is it that you guys, what'd you guys study before you met each other?
Yeah, so I did it.
Yeah, she froze up.
Okay, so David, you first.
I got my undergraduate at Temple University in geology, and then I got a full scholarship for graduate school. There was only one, and I wasn't like top of the class. I was like 10th, but they gave it to me because I was a really good teacher. And so I taught for about 3 more years doing my master's research, and my specialty is stratigraphy and paleontology. I'm a catastrophist, so I really don't follow the uniformitarianist model. And yeah, that's my general background in geology.
See, when you say catastrophist, the first thing I think is you're a guy who likes to study catastrophes. Is that's not the case?
Yes, what the geologic record shows, long and short term, is that everything on Earth is driven catastrophically.
Mhm.
It's not all quiet and the same stuff. If you just look at the Holocene temperature record, it goes up and down, spiky, like 25 times in the last 10,000 years, all driven by grand solar minimums, which starts to cool North America. And then we have big volcanic explosions on the downdrop, which keep it cold for a while, and then we warm up. So these catastrophes are what drive civilizations and the cycle, not cow farts. And that's just a small scale. There's a larger scale catastrophic geology going on. We just had one, the Younger Dryas event, coming out of the last glacial maximum. All hell broke loose. Temperatures rose 15 degrees C, sea level rose 400 feet, and et cetera, et cetera.
See, I want to talk about a lot of this stuff tonight. Leah, have you joined us again? Okay. So
oh man, she's froze up again.
Oh, she's froze. Okay. Well, then maybe maybe we can get her.
There you are.
Okay. Leah's
This
back.
is frustrating.
It's all right. Okay. So you know what? Diamond just finished giving me a little bit of his background, right down to the catastrophism. So from
Yeah.
your standpoint, let me ask you this then, from a physics and standpoint and all that stuff, you guys don't have, not necessarily like you guys went to into school to study the climate or anything like that, but you're in scientific backgrounds, which means you know how to study data. I have to imagine that this is where you started directing your passion into this aspect of your work now.
Well, as a stratigrapher, Frank, I am a paleoclimatologist.
Oh, well, there you go.
So I studied all of the ancient climates in geologic history. I had my specialty was the Silurian, but I looked at all of the geologic record as far as climate is concerned. So that makes me a paleoclimatologist. So I've studied the climate over the Earth for the last billion years.
It's an incredible passage of time there. And we were talking about the grand solar minimum over the course of, I don't know how many years now, keeps popping up because it seems like there is a natural cooling that is starting to happen, that people from all different types of backgrounds, political backgrounds, whatever the hell it is, they're essentially trying to set themselves up to be, I don't know, pat themselves on the back for being the ones to actually cool the planet that's already in a cooling trend. Am I right on that in the nutshell of it?
Leah and I talk about this all the time, that psychopaths like Bill Gates, who are trying to implement stratospheric aerosol injection or solar dimming, some people call it. He's obviously going to be one. If a natural climate cycle cools the earth like a grand solar minimum, he's going to take credit for it if he's allowed to do that type of geoengineering. So we always laugh about that all, the billionaire psychopaths that run the show are going to always claim credit for stuff they didn't do.
Leah, are you there?
Yes.
Okay.
I am here. I'm going to just keep my video off. I think that might help with the bandwidth problem here.
Okay, no problem. I'll save this question for you, and then of course, Diamond, you can jump right in. Also, in your bio here, I just like to hear what you guys are preparing for in particular. It says that the potential societal and environmental challenges, such as what they refer to as an upcoming collapse. Now, when you talk about collapse, a lot of the guests that come on my show are preparing for one collapse or another. Is it mainly societal, or is it some sort of a Younger Dryas kind of chaotic event that you are preparing for?
It's kind of a combination of a lot of things, right? So grand solar minimum would be one of those things. So in a grand solar minimum, it's quite possible that overall, we only drop a degree or two. However, that can have major impacts on our food supply, especially because we globally practice monoculture in huge quantities, right? So if the climate shifts and changes, and we're already seeing that, we see things like the Sahara Desert starting to green up and other changes all over the globe. If climate changes just a little bit such that you can't grow in a monoculture type of way, then that food supply goes away and you have a big societal problem now once that happens, right? So that's just one example, but it could also be something like the electric grid goes down. In 1859, we had the Carrington event. We had a giant solar flare that literally lit the telegraph lines on fire. Now, if that were to happen today, that has a major impact on our electric infrastructure, which means civilization falls apart. If the grid overall goes down, we have an enormous problem because we depend on electricity for everything. So that then leads to a societal collapse. But it could also be, an economic collapse. Everybody's kind of looking at how we have this kind of economic bubble, and that could lead us to hard times. There's so many possible ways that things could go awry. And I think just knowing what we know about the history of sort of natural catastrophes on Earth, it's going to happen at some point. It may or may not be in our lifetime, but it could very well be.
Diamond, you have anything you want to add to that?
Well, yeah, she touched on the grand solar minimum aspect. We don't know until we know. We work with and have had multiple interviews with Dr. Valentina Zarkova, and she's been purporting that we are going to enter a grand solar minimum in starting now and extending into the next decade or more. And we do know the historical accounts of grand solar minimums. The last one was just 100+ years ago. They typically happen in a big way every 240 years in that cycle pattern. But smaller ones happen about every 120 years. And the last one was the centennial minimum back in the early 1900s. So we are due, but that isn't really the most pressing issue on Earth. But like she said, the societal collapse happens first. Very small perturbations in any of the supply chains and people riot. They had food riots in Europe, the bread riots and things like that. But we are also experiencing a magnetic excursion where the magnetic field strength is rapidly dropping. And scientifically speaking, what we've seen is more and different types of aurora in the skies, like a purple aurora called Steve, red aurora, and other new sky phenomenon. And this is only going to increase. We just saw aurora down to the equator with moderately large solar storms. This is unprecedented. And 41,500 years ago, a very deep excursion called the Lechamp caused mass extinction on planet Earth. It ended,
including of the Neanderthals.
The Neanderthals and the Denisovans in just a 100-year period. from 40,030 to 39,260 was the end of the Mosterian tool assemblages. And those were the types of tools that Denisovans and Neanderthals used. So it shows that in these magnetic excursions, unfortunately, those two types of hominids didn't really like to live in caves. They lived out in the open. And at that time, Homo sapien was all over the equator, and Neanderthal and Denisovan was up in the high latitudes in Europe, 40 degrees, 50 degrees north, which is where, when this event occurs, the most radiation occurs. So they had huge amounts of they were hit with huge amounts of radiation. Homo sapiens were a little safer at the mid latitudes. But as this magnetic excursion gets deeper, and even within a decade, we could see huge amounts of ultraviolet radiation destroying the ozone layer, and huge amounts of ionizing radiation in the form of cosmic rays reaching the surface, which is very, very bad for humans.
Diamond, when you say magnetic excursion, so I naturally have some questions for you guys about the poles and what I have discussed with past guests. But when you talk about magnetic excursion, is that are you talking about some moving of the so-called magnetic poles, not an actual geophysical movement, but there's something going on inside of the earth, almost like a lava lamp that's bubbling up and it's reconstituting itself? So it's or are you talking about a weakening of the magnetic field? I'd love a little bit more detail on that.
I could share you the geomagnetic data. Can I share the screen?
Absolutely.
It says I'm disabled.
No, hold on.
Uh-oh.
Let me hold on. There you go. I just said multiple can share.
There you go.
There we have it.
Okay. Oh, screen. Can we see that?
Not yet.
Nope.
I don't know if I shared it correctly.
Hold on a second.
Oh, I have to click share.
There you go.
There we go.
All right, here we go.
There it is.
Yeah, so this is the geomagnetic data for the last 300,000 years. The top panel is the last 45,000 years, and the bottom panel is a little different. It's a different scale. So it goes from 45,000 to 300,000 on the bottom. And this is the magnetic field strength of Earth, which is referred to as VADM. It's just the way that they read the field strength of Earth. And up is strong and down is weak. And so geomagnetic excursions are labeled here in the yellow stripes. The most recent was right around the Younger Dryas event here, which is unnamed. Some people call it the Gothenburg. And then we've got the Mono Lake 34,000 years ago and the Lechamp 41,500 years ago. These are times when the magnetic field strength does a rapid dip, and you can see they're in the dips.
Okay, so excursion is a weakening.
Yes.
It can also reverse in an excursion, but the reversal is usually very brief.
Yeah, so during the Lechamp, you see how weak the field got, almost to zero here?
I guess the most obvious question for an untrained eye like myself is how do you get data from something that happened magnetically 30,000 to 300,000 years ago? I just don't understand how the data is even gathered.
The rocks record it.
The Lechamp here is the most famous, and it's named after the Lechamp lava flows in France. And so on this date, or during the time span of this time geologically, for thousands of years, there was a volcano erupting. And every time it erupted and that lava cooled, the day it cooled, it locked in the magnetic field position.
Okay.
And when you get lava over lava over lava for thousands of years, you have an entire record of what the geomagnetic field is doing.
So all of this is volcanic. This is
Yes.
based on volcanic activity.
Yes.
Oh, I
Like
didn't know.
literally the polarity is recorded in all of the molecules, like because the molecules will actually be oriented according to the polarity of the time.
So this is almost like the with climate change and drilling into Lake Vostok down in Antarctica to read CO2 over the course of thousands of years as well.
Yeah,
Similar,
there are
like you're talking about ice core records.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's three main records that we use for paleoclimatology. The first is the GISP-2. Do you want me to show you that?
Sure.
Is the screen just switching when I click?
Yes.
Yes.
So here's the GISP-2. It's really good. This is the Greenland ice core. It's really good for the last 30,000 years. And here we have a really high resolution record of climate using proxy data for the last 12,000 years in the GISP-2 ice here. So you can see how the temperature shifts wildly on about 1,000-year schedule.
Yeah, I see that.
And so the second record we use is the Epica data, which is Antarctica. That gives us 800,000 years of record. And that proxy data shows a 100,000-year cosmic catastrophe cycle that's completely unexplainable, which you're looking at here.
And where are we? Are we close to that, the end of that 100,000 years?
We're right here on the last interstadial, and we're about to go back down, just like it goes down every time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're at the top. We're about to drop down. And the third high resolution set we use for paleoclimatology that gives us 5 million years of data or more is sediments in lakes. And so you can see here how variable the temperature on Earth has been for the last 5 million years. It goes up and down. In the last million years, it's gone up and down 15 degrees C like a record player.
I can see that. This is crazy.
Yep.
Leah, is there anything that you want to contribute to this before I move to my next question that's now burning in my brain?
Well, I mean, this is just a great example of why background information is so important, right? Like, if you're going to, actually gauge, quote unquote, current climate science, which is a lot of garbage, without looking at the geological past and the temperatures of the geological past, you really can't make any conclusions. And so that's one of the things that has been happening in modern times, where we have an entire population that is bamboozled into believing that we're going to burn up and die, when in reality, the temperatures on Earth have been much warmer than they are today. And the variability in temperature is a regular natural phenomena. And this shows you that exactly.
See, when you talk about the weakening of magnetic fields or the excursions, and you brought up the Carrington events before, I started putting all that together because, as I said, past guests and also audience members on Open Lines Night would talk about, for example, like Ben Davidson, Suspicious Observer, has been on the show a couple of times and has presented some pretty dire geophysical excursion theories, not magnetic, but geophysical, like there's going to be a decoupling of the crust of the Earth and we're going to just slosh around, and there's going to be a lot of bad shit that's going on for, however long until, New York becomes the new equator and everything else in California is now, essentially part of Antarctica. I don't know, but are you guys, obviously you guys are not of that opinion that we are looking at a physical shift of the Earth then. This is something else.
No, I mean, and there's evidence to the contrary in that regard. I mean, there's evidence that, for example, the Arctic has been basically frozen for the last, what is it, Diamond, million years?
Over 2 million.
We have permafrost that goes back that far, that has preserved animals of the past. So the claim,
a paper that came out this year extracted perfectly preserved 2 million year old DNA. The only way DNA can stay preserved for that period of time is if it's in a cryogenic vault. So it has to be frozen sub-zero forever. A little variation and the DNA is destroyed. So it proves that DNA has been perfectly preserved in the permafrost for the last 2 million years. So there's a first line of evidence. Plus, we've got tens of thousands of lakes on the continents. Any evidence of oceans sloshing across continents would be preserved in those lake sediments, and there are no such deposits. So,
well, let me give you this because I'd love to hear your opinion on it. Now, I follow, one of the accounts I follow on Twitter is Ethical Skeptic, and because I love this kind of stuff, I just want to see what everybody's doing. And this is
in the Mediterranean near Santorini on the northern side, there's a huge cliff, subsurface cliff. So any large volcanic explosion or like magnitude 8 earthquake could cause a landslide there. And there are several that are on the bottom of the Mediterranean that already occurred. And one of them would have produced a 900-foot tsunami, which would blast into North Africa there.
Okay, so because that's what I wanted to, just for people in podcast land, I want to be able to kind of spell this out for them. I have on the screen right now, it's a commonly held idea that the direction of what seems to be scarring on the surface of North Africa is evidence that a massive event occurred that sloshed right across the top of the continent. Some maintain it was an impact by something like a comet. Others say that this was the last time that Earth shifted physically, and the scarring is some sort of a...
No, Frank, it's pretty recent. And
Okay.
if you look at the bathymetry maps of the Mediterranean, you can see the actual landslide that created the tsunami.
Really?
It's one of the top 3 largest landslides ever recorded on Earth.
And what was the cause of the tsunami again in your from your standpoint? What was it?
There's a mile-high cliff on the northern Mediterranean. A large earthquake occurred, and a landslide with hundreds of square miles of material slid down. It was all underwater. It's called a turbidity current. And then at the surface, it causes a huge displacement of water that grows. And so, yeah, it was a very big tsunami, and it washed all the way across Africa, all the way to the other side. And there's evidence on the Great Pyramid of this weathering. I mean, you can look at the Great Pyramid and see how high the water was.
So do you guys, well, I guess this is really off topic. Actually, before I move on to this slightly off topic, Leah, is there anything you want to add or compliment this?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is sort of more in a philosophical aspect. It can be really tempting sometimes to, develop a whole theory about why something looks the way it does. And often there's already evidence and data and information to explain why something appears the way it does, like in this case, the Sahara. And so it's just a general comment about, I think we have sort of a problem in our modern culture, especially in online circles, where people will develop some alternative theory without actually having considered the background information, right? It's like you can't find an anomaly if you don't know what the original pattern is. Does that make sense?
Yes, and people become we've talked about this on the show recently, across all subject matter, people become very protective of their theories, and they get... It gets nasty out there. It really does.
Oh, it does. I mean, if you present evidence to the contrary of someone's theory, we run into this all the time, right? Because there are certain theories that we are not proponents of because the evidence isn't there, or there is evidence to the contrary of that thing. And this is just born out of the scientific method, right? The method is you develop a hypothesis, and then you collect data and you test that data with experimentation and study, and then maybe you have a theory. So it's like without I'll just give you a really silly example. There's a person that we know who recently kind of went off the deep end with this idea that there was something really abnormal going on with the planets. And this person was basing that on the fact that they're looking at the sky and they don't see Neptune where it's supposed to be. But what this person didn't know, was that Neptune has never been visible to the naked eye. So it's like there's this like serious lack of like background information, and then people are jumping to conclusions about this and that. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, like, we're super skeptical. There are certain things that we absolutely believe are true conspiracies, but not everything is a conspiracy. And it's like you really have to go back and study and look at the background information before you can really find a true anomaly or a true conspiracy. And I think we have a lot of people that are jumping to conclusions without that background information.
Diamond, anything?
Yeah, the majority of these people on the interwebs and Twitter and social media that call themselves researchers do no research. They research in line with their conspiracy, but they don't research the topic in general. And so they have no actual scientific background into whatever they're claiming, which is insane. Like these people claim something in 5 seconds. I look in the internet. I'm like, that's Starlink. It's not aliens shooting out of a volcano.
Oh, I saw that UFOs were shooting out of a volcano, and it was like it was pretty much like a long exposure, kind of a film glitch.
It's how they take the volcano shots. They're long exposure shots.
Yeah.
And then they looked that week and they said, oh yeah, it was Starlink. It came by at 8:32 p.m., blah, blah, blah. It just happened to be in the right angle.
So from your guys' standpoint here, your position is that the fact of the matter is the magnetic field of the Earth is weakening. So regardless of whether obviously it's a big difference if the Earth is stationary still, or if we have a 90-degree flip-flop or something here. But regardless, being in this position, we're still vulnerable to Carrington events, upheavals such as quakes and volcanoes, because what I did learn was what is pretty consistent across these interviews that I've conducted, whether it be with Ben Davidson or my friend Jim Lee or anybody else, is that when the magnetic field weakens, the sun will cause craziness that results in volcanic activity and upheavals
it's kind of, those two things are kind of, sorry to cut you off. Those two things are kind of intermingled, right? So kind of like when the sun is very active, our magnetic field on Earth is very strong.
It grows. She just froze up there.
Yeah, it's okay.
So the more geomagnetic storms we get blasted with, the stronger the magnetic field grows.
We become very much. Oh, there we go. I don't know what you last heard, but when the sun is strong, it is kind of it is exercising our magnetic field on Earth, and it is allowing our magnetic field to be strong, which protects us from cosmic rays from the rest of the universe, from the sun itself. When the sun is weak, our magnetic field is weak, and we are subject to much more cosmic ray bombardment than we would be in periods of time where the sun is active. So there's definitely a connection there. And part of that, like you mentioned, is actually volcanic activity. There is an absorption of some of that radiation in lava that can produce more volcanic eruptions. So there's definitely a connection there. And that's not to say that the sun is necessarily causing a magnetic excursion. I don't know if we've fully uncovered the link of, when exactly excursions happen. And I just have to throw out there too, like Ben Davidson, for example, is a proponent of this idea that magnetic excursions / reversals happen on a regular schedule, which the data does not support at all. And you can see that in the graphs that we showed earlier. The timing of those excursions and reversals is not on a regular schedule. And the only way that you can say that is if you're cherry picking which reversals / excursions you're looking at.
And so, for example, I saw in the headlines recently a volcano or earthquake swarm in Santorini. Stuff like that. Obviously, you're probably paying attention to that. Is that natural, or are these things occurring a little bit more abnormally these days?
The amount of erupting volcanoes is much lower than what would be considered high. Once we get above 50 erupting volcanoes, that would be considered high. We're in the 20 to 30 range, and it goes up and down. But what happens when the magnetic field weakens is we get more and more cosmic rays, which I was explaining to you as the chemtrail link. And a paper came out about almost a decade ago that was showing that siliceous-rich volcanoes, these are the explosive ones and the supervolcanoes, cosmic rays affect their magma chambers and heat them. So as cosmic rays increase, they go through the Earth, they go through you, which causes genetic damage, which is why they're bad. But they also go through the Earth, and they heat these siliceous-rich magma chambers, and that means the biggest booms on Earth. So during the Lechamp magnetic excursion, as we were dropping deep down there, Campi Flegrei exploded with its largest explosion ever recorded in geologic history, an Iguinbright at VEI 7, which caused the largest, huge caldera to drop down there in Campi Flegrei. There hasn't been an eruption of that size since 40,000 years ago or so when it blew up. So, and every time the field gets low, we've got these big VEI7 eruptions. Even grand minimas trigger VEI6s. So we know there is an intrinsic cosmic connection. It's crazy. We talk about this, like when things get bad, they get really bad. So it gets cold, everyone starves, they get the plague, and then a VEI7 eruption happens and it gets even worse.
Right, because there's a connection here too with temperature and volcanic eruption, right? So once you get a major volcanic eruption, like a VEI7 or 8, at that level, you have particles that are entering the stratosphere, and they don't leave the stratosphere for quite some time. And so that then causes essentially solar dimming, where we literally get less sunlight on Earth. 1816 was the year without a summer, so to speak, is what it's called. And this was caused by the eruption of, what is it, Tambora?
Yep.
Tambora. And that's essentially what happened, is we sort of didn't have a summer on Earth. It was dreary and dark and the weather sucked and crops failed. And then, and then stuff sucks. People get sick because they're malnourished, because the temperatures have changed and microorganisms are functioning differently. Like, this is something we've talked about on our Saturday show a couple of times recently, where, so the plague is caused by a certain bacteria called Yersinia pestis. And that bacteria, it tends to want to thrive in rodents, but it thrives much more in rodents when the temperature is a little bit colder, because the way it's processed by the gastrointestinal tract of fleas, it is affected by temperature. So when it's colder, the bacteria you get more of this bacteria with fleas, and rodents get it, and then humans get it, which is why typically we've had plagues in periods of time where it's actually colder. And so this whole thing is like a domino effect. So we go, say we go into grand solar minimum, we have more cosmic radiation on
more cosmic radiation on Earth, and then volcanoes go boom.
It's essentially a gigantic feedback loop that
Yes.
It gets. I can see that now.
And then you get mud floods. So that whole mud flood phenomenon is from the grand solar minimum occurs. You get a volcanic explosion at VI6, cooling the Earth and darkening the skies, and then it rains for a year. And all the rivers come up higher than they ever were, and they bury these cities like Rome was buried in mud floods. There's 80 foot of mud burying Rome in the last 2,000 years. That's from these grand minimas.
So let me ask you guys. Hold on, Leah. You say whichever you got to say before I.
Let me just throw this out there too for your listeners. This is an important point about cosmic rays. So what cosmic rays basically are is they're ionized elements. They're little atoms of elements that have a charge. Because they're ionized. And what that does is that actually attracts water vapor. This is one of the reasons why you see a lot of persistent contrails in the atmosphere these days. But that, again, it brings water vapor into the atmosphere, which is, I mentioned this because Diamond mentioned lots of rain. So that would be more cloud cover and more rain is typical during a grand solar minimum. And this is a phenomena that was actually proven by Henry Stensmark I forget what the paper is, but he had a famous paper about this, basically proving this point. I think NASA went to set out to disprove him, and they ended up proving him correct, which is kind of funny.
Do you guys ever jump into, even on like a Friday night stream or anything like that, mud flood, lost civilization theories, Atlantis, especially, some people like Jimmy Corsetti of Bright Insight would, really focuses in on that the reshot structure in North Africa as being a potential location of where Atlantis was, and how it would be washed out into the Atlantic Ocean if that, whatever the hell caused the, you're just talking about this essential, tidal wave from the Mediterranean coming across the face of Africa. You ever get into lost civilization talk like that on a night that you just want to let your hair down?
We do talk about lost civilization stuff, and again, we have some departures from sort of popular topics. Diamond, perhaps you could explain what the reshot structure actually is.
Go ahead.
It's well, a new paper just came out this week, maybe 2 weeks ago, with the final explanation on an ancient magma body was in place there about 100 million years ago. It caused doming. They were considering salt doming, but it caused doming in that region 100 million years ago, and 100 million years of erosion, and you get those concentric rings. So it's way too old to have anything to do with Atlantis. Additionally, Africa during Atlantis, let's go back 15,000 years ago, was actually about 9 meters higher. So that area by the reshat structure was never even near sea level, so it can't be Atlantis. Additionally, Solon describes exactly where Atlantis is, and it's in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean where the Azores are. So you come out of the Mediterranean through the Pillars of Hercules and you go straight. You don't make 2 lefts and then go up to the center of Africa. So there's no evidence the reshat structure is Atlantis, except that it's circular. Like, it's the dumbest connection ever. And I think Jimmy Corsetti is not the smartest person on earth.
As far as like
Randall Carlson has the best explanation for Atlantis. So check that out.
As far as like lost civilization stuff goes, I mean, we do firmly believe that there's ample evidence for there being modern high technology societies in the past. Some of this you can see in some of the megalithic structures, let's say in South America, where there's building construction that is very hard for us to explain, like the polygonal masonry of oh shoot, I'm spacing on the name right now. But I mean, we're talking about masonry that is the tolerance between stones is so meticulous, like we can't even slip a piece of paper in there. And one of the best explanations, and it's just a theory and speculation, would be something like the use of a geopolymer, like a stone that is created like essentially with liquid and like a mold first, would be a better explanation than these stones being carved to fit with such tight tolerance that we don't even have the technology to do that today. I think there's tons of evidence for high civilizations of the past, and one of the things that we like to talk about a lot is kind of like a catastrophe cycle, and this is all tied in with, if you're familiar with the Yuga cycle, which is a Vedic philosophy phenomena, where we essentially go through a cycle every 24 to 26,000 years, which happens to line up with the precession of the equinoxes, where we have like a golden age and like a silver age and a bronze age and like an iron age, where we sort of hit the bottom. We hit the bottom as far as our technology goes, as far as our sort of morals, our understanding of the physical universe becomes very minimal. And then eventually we come out of that, and our consciousness rises in the second half of the cycle to come back up to the golden age. To us, it looks like there's a catastrophe cycle on Earth that kind of lines up with that. And I believe, and this is maybe going to be a stretch, but I believe that there's a reason for that. And I'll just backtrack a little bit and say, like, spiritually, I fully believe that each of us reincarnates again and again and again, that we choose the lives that we are living now because there's some spiritual lesson that we've decided that we needed to learn. But in order for that to work, we would have to forget all of our previous lives, right? Otherwise, there's nothing to learn. And I think that it's very similar on Earth, that we go through catastrophes on a regular basis in order to forget everything that we knew before so that we can learn it all over again.
I know that we're, some people would say that we are in that fourth and final stage of the Yugas, the Kali Yuga. And that is,
some say we're out of Kali at this point, but it depends on who you ask.
Just me having a very limited understanding of the whole thing, I'd say that we are not out of the darkness yet. So
no, I would agree with that.
So whenever I see that the dawn one day, they'll say, oh, maybe you guys have something going on over there. But
But even the recognition of the darkness, I think, is evidence of us starting to leave the darkness.
that's
Right? Like if we were truly in the darkest of the dark ages, I don't know that we would have any ability to recognize the existence of that darkness.
here's a good question. I think a lot of people at home would like to know because when it comes to your channel, your work, Oppenheimer Ranch project, there's a lot of really amazing channels out there with great personalities that are engaging. That like I know that, for example, my brother, he watches real time weather channels on YouTube all the time. I mean, individuals who are taking public data, analyzing it, and giving weather forecasts for the entire country, and they're doing so in really engaging ways, and they're pretty accurate. I mean, they're at least as good as our local weathermen with their Doppler radars and all that stuff. My question for you is, what are your most reliable sources of information, and what do you to what end do you? I understand that for anybody who's watching this show right now, we have a couple of different things that we do. We listen to different shows and personalities that we like. We get into open debates to see, what sounds right. Then we go check it against books that have been written. And, when we read the newspaper or read anything else that's published out there in a mainstream sense, we read it with a certain set of eyes to know that every word has triple meaning and it's serving the state's interest and all that other shit. And then, of course, there's things like NOAA, NASA. Nobody really trusts a lot of what's coming out of there. So how do you guys pull together all the information that you got to then, analyze it and put it out there for your subscribers?
Well, the NASA and the NOAA climate data has been adulterated. A good resource for that is Tony Heller. He's on every social media platform. He's demonstrated that they've been changing the data since the 1990s to make it warmer now and colder in the past, when it was actually much warmer in the 1930s than it is now. So you don't use NASA or NOAA data at all for any historical climatology work. You use the data that we're showing you from ice and sediments, because that hasn't been changed, because it always is what it was and they haven't changed it. But they have changed the temperature data. Go ahead.
I think you can rely on some NASA data, for example, in regard to the dynamics of our sun currently. Like that doesn't seem to be something that's adulterated at right now. Right. So like in every possible way, we want to try to use raw data as much as possible. That's not to say that there isn't bad data, because there is, right? Like the climatology data is a very good example. When we're trying to gauge the temperature on Earth, and then we know that a lot of our temperature stations are sitting like on tarmacs at airports and stuff like that, we know we have a problem, because that data is going to be influenced by the heat that is generated by an airport. So, we're looking for raw data, but we're still being careful and skeptical about the accuracy of that raw data.
Lost her again.
Yeah, so that's one thing, that if we're talking about climate, you just disregard NASA and NOAA. If you're talking about weather forecasting and you're trying to do it yourself, the climate models that exist, like the European model, the GFS model, the ICON model, the best resource is Ryan Hall. He is, I've been watching him for years. He gives you all of the outputs from all of the models and then gives you a general consensus. So way better than like anybody on TV giving you the weather, because he's going at it in a deeper look scientifically. And so that's the same way I do my weather forecasting on the channel. I go over all three models. I watch them continuously, and I watch them change every 6 hours over time. I also watch patterns repeat, and you can also cross-reference with solar cycles and other patterns that have occurred, because there's weather patterns that change in an 11-year cycle from drought to deluge that happen everywhere.
Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we read a lot of scientific papers, and, even then, there's a lot of fraud in the scientific literature. So every time you read a paper, you have to be on the lookout for that as well. This is one of the things that I did part. I don't know if you heard this earlier, but I did part of a graduate program in biomedical writing. And this was part of my coursework, was to look for places where the statistics are actually being manipulated. There's that famous book, How to Lie with Statistics, because it can be done. But there's also checks and balances where you can kind of tell where it's happening. And I think we stumble on this pretty frequently. And, again, climate science is one of the places where we run into this often, where you find that, somebody has written a paper and their funding is dependent on coming to a conclusion that, the world is burning up or whatever. And sometimes it's very easy to identify once you actually read the paper. But you have to know how to read a scientific paper, and you have to know how to do the statistics to see where it's being manipulated, if it is.
I would really love to I wanted to take a really quick break and hold you guys over to the other end, because I have a couple of the things I want to ask you, and perhaps we can even try to bring in an audience member or two to ask you guys a question. Would you be willing to do that?
Sure.
Okay, wonderful. I'm going to put you on, mute for a second, and we're going to be right back in just a second. Is that all right with you guys?
Let's do it.
All right. Okay, we will actually, you know what? If you can do me a favor and mute yourself, that would give me one less thing to do. We'll be right back, everybody. Don't go anywhere.
Carla, I hate your stinking guts. You make me vomit. You're a scum between my toes. Love, alpha. Whoa.
Quite frankly, he's amazing.
Okay, so we're bringing back Diamond and Leah. Before we bring on some audience members, because I would love to have some audience members call in. We tested it. I mean, Diamond and Leah were there. We had a call. It worked perfectly. So if it doesn't work tonight, I'm telling you, I'm calling an exorcist. But other than that, I do have something I want to throw your way while we start getting the hotline number out there, guys. And that is this alignment that we see going on in the sky right now. And that is, let me see here. We have 7 planets. We've got Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Of course, we're in the middle of all that stuff. But do you guys, I've had so many great people on the air with me over the years from an astrological standpoint talking about this stuff. And I always have the question lined up for them because I like hearing their answers. And that is, there's always this astrological significance placed on these celestial alignments, and how the expression of one conjunction or one, the one planet or another going into retrograde and reversing and all that stuff really lines up with some very interesting historical patterns, the way that we behave with each other, the rise and fall of civilizations and all that. So aside from that kind of metaphysical lineup, do you have any discernible physical impacts on Earth from a gravitational standpoint or anything else that these planetary alignments really provide, or is it really just something a little bit more mystical than that?
So, okay, for one, planetary alignments, they kind of happen all the time. Not all the time, but they happen pretty frequently. So I think it's a little bit hard to claim that they're responsible for major changes on Earth. Could there be an effect? Maybe. But I tend to think that if there is an effect, it would be electromagnetic, not so much gravity. Now, I have to backtrack a little bit here because we are subscribers to the concept of electric universe theory, which would sort of throw the traditional idea of gravity a bit into the garbage. It basically suggests that gravity is really a function of electromagnetics, that it is not a force unto itself.
Okay.
So I don't really think of the effect as being gravitational per se. Um, you know, Astrology I think is very interesting. It's kind of a loosey-goosey science. Having said that, human beings have been watching the skies for millennia. Um, and so I mean there very well may be something important there. I'm actually gotten really interested about a year ago into something a bit different. It's called human design. And human design is kind of a mixture of astrology, I Ching, the chakras in the human body, um, something else that I'm missing right now. But one of the ideas behind that is that some of the tiny physical particles that are in our universe everywhere, that we're affected by those. And when a planet kind of like crosses a line to us, that has some impact on us as spiritual beings. I bring this up only because from my limited study, it seems to me like human design might essentially be a much more specific and perhaps more accurate kind of astrology in a way.
Mhm.
I think one of the struggles with astrology is that because it is kind of loosey goosey, like while it's really intriguing that you can sometimes find connections between, a particular planetary position and a type of historical event, right? Like
Yeah.
whether it's a period of protest or a period of relative calm or whatever. I mean, it's interesting, but there's so many variables in the whole picture that it's really hard to draw definitive connections between things.
That's
So,
that's interesting. Yeah.
Well, and additionally, this is not a planetary alignment in the scientific sense. This is a planetary alignment in the visual sense, where
Right.
the planets appear in a line in the sky. A planetary alignment that could be geophysically effective, Frank, would be when the planets are all, you wouldn't be able to see them in a line. They're all right in front of each other, connected in an alignment. So they occult each other, so to speak.
Mhm.
If planets were in a line, they would all be in the same spot in the sky. This is a different type of alignment. It's not a true alignment. They just use it for headlines, and it's a visual alignment. They won't be visibly aligned like this, I think, until 2116 or something.
No, we're gonna miss out on that one, huh?
Yeah.
Shit. It always
But it's not a true alignment that may cause an earthquake.
Well, you know what? I'm going to take a call. I want to see if this actually works, and hopefully it goes through. John.
Hello there.
Hello, John. You there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Hey, Diamond, how you doing, pal? Boom to knowledge. You're doing great. Hey, Lee, I love you, girl. My question is, how long is the Hunga Tunga eruption still going to affect us with all that extra water vapor in the atmosphere?
About another two years, maybe 3 years, we'll see record flooding worldwide.
It worked. This worked. I feel so happy right now.
I
don't even.
So mine don't work.
I don't even know what the hell he just asked.
Knowledge.
Well,
I kind of knew the answer anyways because I watch Magnetic Reversal News and Oppenheimer Ranch project because they're the best. All right, hey,
right on, John.
Guys. Hey, Rob.
Thank you, Willie. Have a good one. Oh. I can't tell you how happy I am right now. I don't even know what Willie asked, to be honest, because the fact that you guys were talking with each other just made me so happy. And
he asked about how long the Hunga Tunga moisture in our stratosphere and atmosphere will last.
Okay.
Hunga Tunga was an explosion that produced a volcanic eruption that came from underwater and introduced a huge amount of water vapor into the atmosphere.
Gotcha. And that was recently? Because I remember this for some reason.
3 years ago?
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's try another one here. Hold on 1 second. No, that didn't. Wait, hold on. Okay, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead. 267?
Yeah. How you doing?
Doing well. Who's this?
This is the Abbey Free.
How are you? You're on.
You guys are talking.
You're on with Diamond and Leah.
Yeah, Diamond. You were just talking about. I think it's occultic alignments of planets,
And I wanted to talk about on March 25th of this year how Earth, Venus, Mercury will be aligned straight ahead like 3 Cazinis to the sun, and Saturn and Neptune will be behind the sun at that point. Additionally, Jupiter is aligned with the galactic center opposite, kind of like as a grand cross on that day. And I wanted to know what you guys thought about that first. I also had another question about as Earth moves in front of the sun and would be the tip of the iceberg, if you will, somewhere around June of this year.
Okay, so let's hear about that first one, because I'm curious about the significance of stuff like this as well.
Well, based on the electric universe model, if we line up, our Birkeland currents could intermingle and react, and that causes some type of tidal pulling, especially when planets are occulting. When we're in a line, there may be some type of electromagnetical interaction that triggers large earthquakes. So, and there have been instances when that's occurred. There's been these types of alignments where large earthquakes occurred. But simultaneously, there also may be a large coronal hole and a plasma stream hitting Earth at the same time. So it depends on things lining up. You know, it's not a given, but something huge could happen.
Okay, caller, what's your second question real quick?
Oh, the fact that Earth after that will go out in front of the sun and be the sole planet out in front of our solar system.
You mean are you saying that you're saying at that moment the Earth is going to be on one side of the sun and literally all other planets will be on the other side?
I was going to say, which side is the front is the question.
I was going to say, is that the front or the back?
Yeah, that's the same setup. So we could see a similar result.
Well, thank you so much for that. That sounds like, is that something that works against us, I guess, is the real question. Let me take on another call. I just want to keep up the pace. Oh shit. Well, that would have been good. Well, call back in, John Otter. I just saw you pop up. I'm excited right now. Let's do this a little bit more. To hell with it. All right, 914-369-1236 is the number. John, you're on the air.
You there?
Go ahead, John.
Hey, how you doing, Diamond and Leah? Hi, Frank.
Hey, John.
What's up, John?
Hey, the Easy mission coming up, the Electrojet studying mission, studying the auroras and such. And I wonder your insights on how that's going to relate to the collapse of the Van Allen belts with the weakening magnetic field. And also on the same lines, I think it was you that I remember looking at Lichtenberg patterns in granite. And will there be massive telluric currents, ground currents, when something like that goes down? So that's my question. I'm going to hang up and let you guys eat on that.
Yeah, well, if we enter a really deep magnetic excursion, and because it's exponentially decreasing the field strength, you can project it out. We could be reaching Lechamp levels by 2035. That's 10 years. And so what the Neanderthal and Denisovans were experiencing was maybe this is where you ever hear the squatter man, Frank?
No.
It's a plasma petroglyph that was created in a lab in Los Alamos by Anthony Peratt. The same as Jacob's Ladder and many other petroglyphs that are shown worldwide that have been pecked into rock since 14,000 years ago or even earlier. And they may all be memories of the 41,000-year-old Lechamp excursion. So yes, increased telluric currents, plasma storms. Like if you go outside, lightning that's 10,000 times stronger than it is now. So you know, a bolt a mile away and you'll explode standing on the ground kind of scenario. So we were caveman for a reason, not because we were dumb ooga boogas, because bad things were happening. And if we went inside and underground, we were safe.
Hey, what was the other thing he was saying there too? I mean, it's the first time I'm hearing it.
It's the Easy mission.
But
the Easy mission is going up.
Yeah, but John said something in particular about the Van Allen belt. It's what, like it's dissipating or something like that. This is everybody knows about the Van Allen belt because that's central to so many 1969 moon landing theories that we never could get past it and all that stuff. What was he talking about with that in particular?
they're sending up a new mission to study the sun and cosmic origins. And I didn't know they were studying the Van Allen belts, but apparently there's a connection. So I wasn't aware of that. But all these new solar missions is because the powers that be know that the magnetic field is weakening. They know that a huge solar storm will destroy the entire planet. They know historically we've had them, and they now know about Miyake events. This is a new event in the cupboard. It's a solar storm that was just revealed to us. We've had about 10 of them in the last 10,000 years, and they are 1,000 times stronger than the Carrington event. So this is a huge worry to technological civilization. If a Miyake event occurs, or like a Carrington event times 5, it's over. 80-90% of the population going to starve in the first 6 months, and there is no technology for a very long time.
About 10 years ago, I think it was 10 years ago, there's a paper that we reviewed that was written by a military personnel. I don't remember what branch of the military they were in. But they kind of went through all of the effects of, a grid failure due to, let's say, a Carrington type event or a Miyake event. And I feel like this paper didn't even go far enough to illustrate the domino effect, but it's like, just consider the role of emergency personnel, right? In such a scenario, they're going to be dependent on generators and fuel. And at some point, there's not enough fuel in the world to keep things going in such a way that you can even provide all of the emergency services.
Yeah.
And so, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. We're so dependent on technology. I mean, that's why we're sort of preparing to live like it's the 1800s at some point.
Well, you guys are 70% of the way there, so that's good, because I'll tell you, my end of the stick over here in New York, I've been pretty proficient at growing some cherry tomatoes every year. I have one successful cherry tomato plant, and sometimes some chilies. And I don't know. I could probably make a couple of salads if the world.
Well, you're also, at the disadvantage of being in a highly populated place. Like,
Yeah.
I grew up on Long Island, right, where it's 3,500 people per square mile, right? So if shit hits the fan, that's tough, because you have a lot of people that are going to be desperate.
Yep.
Yeah, Frank, you got to bug out.
Danger.
I hear it all the time. There's a lot of people that got to bug out over here. At least I'm not in the middle of the boroughs, but I'm still not too far away. I'm an hour's drive, so there's that. You know what, guys? I think that I don't know if it's bottlenecked or anything, but we got a couple of calls in, and I'm so happy we were able to do that. Here's one last thing I'll ask you, just on the homesteading aspect, since you just brought it up here. I'll leave the hotline open just in case, but I think we're good with that for now. What are you guys looking forward to the most with, well, I guess we can talk about Trump 2.0 all day long, but I have to imagine as homesteaders, you have plenty of interest in the impacts that Robert Kennedy Jr. has pledged to make in particular. What has piqued your interest the most? And I guess I can ask you a bird flu question after that too, but go ahead. Let me just hear really quick what you have on that.
You're talking about as far as like the Maha movement?
Yeah, because it has so much to do with agriculture and what you are in the middle of right now. So that in particular, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, part of one of the pieces of the motivation for us to move out here and develop this homestead, I mean, we've talked about a lot of it, but some of it is about having growing our own food, that we know what's in it and we control that. And it doesn't have garbage in it. It doesn't have pesticides. It's not genetically modified. It's not coming from animals that are vaccinated with mRNA vaccines, because we don't know. We do not know right now what the impact of that on the animals that we eat will be.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Diamond.
Well, we have food with no pesticides, and food is the medicine. We've lost touch with that. The civilization we live in now has lost touch with farming.
Oh,
go ahead.
I'm back. I don't know where I left off.
I think well, I don't know. I don't know either because Diamond jumped.
I mean,
in.
I was just talking about, our motivation to have control over what is in our food and how it's produced.
That's what Diamond, he jumped right in and he was talking about the lack of pesticides and also vaccine. I mean, when it comes to all this bird flu stuff right now, I mean, I just saw somebody, I think it was with the Wall Street Journal opinion, and there's like some sort of, the agricultural department made some sort of a pledge to help everybody with this. I don't know how you guys take that in particular, because I wouldn't doubt that these are considerations for anybody who takes care of animals. You said you have chickens, you've got rabbits, you wanted to do sheep or whatever. But when I heard about these chickens, tens of millions of chickens are being culled because of positive PCR tests. I said, here we go. It
doesn't even make sense to do that. That's not how you combat a disease. What you do is you allow the animals to develop some amount of immunity to that disease, and then you keep those animals, and then they are then protected going forward from similar viruses. So it makes zero sense to cull entire flocks because of one positive PCR test. Furthermore, you have the problem with, and you've probably heard of this before, PCR test was never intended to be a diagnosis for anything, because you can run endless cycles on a PCR test and you can find anything you want to find.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I suspect, and I don't know this, it's just speculation, that part of all of this is it's all part of controlling the population by controlling what they eat. And the way that you do that is you have corporate and government control over all of the food. Like, I'm actually really worried about this in terms of being like a backyard chicken keeper, that there may be some point where, our governments decide, oh, no, you can't keep chickens anymore because it's too dangerous. And this stuff like that has already happened in the UK, where they started demanding that people register all of their chickens.
Well, to your point,
right now that I'm not doing that.
To your point, Leah, I like I said, I was reading this on the Wall Street Journal today, and somebody from the Trump agricultural department, which should not exist, these are departments and agencies I just want to see go away. They're rightfully so. This all started under Biden, and we started seeing the chicken farms going up in flames, and then the flu started. They said the flu's going around. It's all PCR tests, and they killed so far over 170 million chickens, I think it is. Yeah. And what I've seen in this article today is that the current administration was putting forth a 5-point plan. Some of it is giving a little bit more financial resources to farmers, which I don't really care for. The other thing I liked was they want to deregulate a little bit more. That's great. But the one thing that really got me is that they were trying to figure out where the USDA can find a place for appropriate use of vaccines and therapeutics for laying chickens.
It's so stupid.
I know.
I mean, for all of human history, we have not needed vaccines for chickens.
And that's what they're talking about right now.
It's totally unnecessary. I mean, every organism in the world experiences sickness at some point, and we develop immunity, and we die, or we don't, and we develop immunity and we move on. Like, it is so much better to let our natural immune systems take care of this stuff. What also really concerns me is I'm suspicious about the idea that perhaps this particular bird flu has been played around with in a laboratory. Like perhaps with gain-of-function research. I have heard from some reputable sources that may actually be happening with bird flu, that there are some researchers who are actively trying to figure out how to make this bird flu cross species, which is completely insane. There's really not that many, as my understanding is, there's really not that many zoonotic viruses in the world. That's not really like a normal thing. And yet we have researchers doing this under the guise of, oh, well, we need to do this in order to be prepared to protect animals and people from some pandemic, when the research you're doing is more likely to cause one. It's just completely insane.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I had to ask. Diamond, anything you wanted to add to that before we wrap up for tonight?
Well, we can all fight back by growing our own chickens. There are many red states and governors that are passing bills right now. Some bills have passed, which are allowing everyone in the state to have up to 6 hens, because a lot of cities have ordinances against chickens. So instead, the states are superseding them and getting chickens in the backyards of every home. They're easy to buy, easy to take care of, and you don't have to worry about vaccines in your eggs, or because your eggs are coming from what you feed the chickens. So you're in total control of what you're eating.
Well, I got to say, we can probably go on for a long time, and I hope that this is the first of many calls that we do together, because there's plenty we left on the table. I definitely want to do more calls from the audience, and I also know that you guys have some more broadcasting to do tonight on your own channel. So let me just open up the floor and let you tell everybody how to find you, how to watch you live, and where they should all go to subscribe for your latest work.
The best place to find me is every night on Oppenheimer Ranch Project between 6 and 8 p.m. I put up a daily update about news, weather, geophysical events, and important topics. And Leah and I do a radio show on Revolution Radio Saturday, noon Mountain Time in Studio B, which now gets replayed on our newest channels on Rumble, because YouTube has just recently demonetized us on one of our channels. We are now over on Rumble, so you can watch over at Magnetic Reversal News on Rumble, and that goes up every Saturday night.
That's it's fantastic. So, but tonight, what time are you going live? 9?
8 or 9, I'll be up there. Yeah,
that's right. Your time.
That's 8 or 9 our time.
Yes.
So we're Mountain Time, so that would be
about 10 or 11 Eastern time.
10 or 11 Eastern, yeah.
All right.
And the Saturday show goes up 8 p.m. Mountain Time, so 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific.
And follow me on X at Oppenheimer Ranch Project at Diamond the Dave.
You can find me as well on X. Leah Shaper is my handle.
Oh, I have to find you, Leah. I have Diamond. I friended him, and
I just followed you back today.
Cool. And I tagged you guys. I tagged you in the actual title of tonight's stream that is being syndicated on Twitter. So if you guys just go to my account, you'll see it right there. You can click through to their account. So it's all there. I appreciate you guys for spending some time with us tonight. It's a nice foundation for future talks. And I'm sure I'll be fielding a lot of calls from you in the next, about you in the next couple of days. So all the best to you. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Frank.
Thanks for having us, Frank. Look forward to doing it again.
Oh, we will. Take care. There you go, everybody. So, hey, we got a couple of minutes left. It's 8:38. I'm going to go on a really quick break. When we come back, your calls, 914-200-0269. Let's just fill them on up, and then we'll go to the after hours on quitefrankly.tv. I'm really happy. Now, I don't know what happens on some other night. I don't know what happens tomorrow, the day after, whatever the hell, when we have a guest on. But for tonight, we took, 3 successful calls, 4 if you consider the test that we did before the show started. I'm happy. I'm going to go home. I'm going to have myself a mineral water and really just, I don't know, just drink it. And all right, I'll be right back.
Hey, Frank, you're one talented guy. You're very good. Very good.
When you see the greed and the concentration of power within, did you ever have a moment of doubt about capitalism and whether greed's a good idea to run on?
Well, first of all, tell me, is there some society you know that doesn't run on greed? You think Russia doesn't run on greed? You think China doesn't run on greed? What is greed? Of course, none of us are greedy. It's only the other fellow who's greedy. The world runs on individuals pursuing their separate interests. The great achievements of civilization have not come from government bureaus. Einstein didn't construct his theory under order from a bureaucrat. Henry Ford didn't revolutionize the automobile industry that way. In the only cases in which the masses have escaped from the kind of grinding poverty you're talking about, the only cases in recorded history are where they have had capitalism and largely free trade. If you want to know where the masses are worst off, it's exactly in the kinds of societies that depart from that. So that the record of history is absolutely crystal clear that there is no alternative way so far discovered of improving the lot of the ordinary people that can hold a candle to the productive activities that are unleashed by a free enterprise?
Oh, I love you so much. Can I have your autograph? Say, I was thinking about this one thing you said, and I don't agree with it. And can you please explain this? Or I'm on this side of the thing. I want to hear your arguments for or against things. Just remember that going forward, okay? Just remember that going forward. I want to hear well-articulated, intelligent dissent. Trolling, I mean, I know it's going to be out there, but it only goes so far. Now there's no excuse. Now the bridge has been built between you and the guest, and I get to sit back and go, and just try to keep things civil. So just consider that. I'm inviting you. I'm inviting you deeper into the production of the show. You understand that? I am offering a hand. I'm offering a hand. Come to the production of the show. Call in. I'll take a call from this guy real quick. Hey, I'm taking your call again, John, just because I want to congratulate you for making history tonight. You're the first audience member to ever ask a question of a guest.
I just wanted to, test your machine or something, but Diamond and Leah, I've been watching them since forever. I don't know, but maybe same time as you, maybe before or after you. But yeah, I don't know if I Twittered you to get them in there or how. I don't know how you got them to get on there. I even asked him to look you up too, to expand his stuff, because he's right on the border of 100,000 for YouTube, and I forgot to say it when I was on before.
I wouldn't be surprised.
To have all the Franklies go over there and sub to his YouTube to get him over to 100,000, right? Because he's like at 99,000 or 90,000 or something, and he's been doing it for like 20 years or something, or I don't know, 15 years.
Good luck getting 10,000 people to go subscribe over there. I can't. Yeah, I normally can't get 800 people to like the show every night. That's just one click of the mouse on a page that they're already sitting on. So, but listen, thanks.
Isn't he great, man?
Oh, I had a lot of fun, and there's a lot more to talk about.
Have you ever seen his shows or stuff before?
In the last 6 weeks or so, yeah, I had to look at quite a bit so I can get an idea of what we talk about.
Yeah, he's got a volume of stuff that's amazing.
Well,
not to say you don't, but I love the way he backs everything up with science and data and everything else. He's just no joke.
Either way,
his girl, right? When she froze up, that was like true love, is what I wanted to say. That was my other thing I wanted to say tonight. When she froze up, he finished the same thing she said, and then she come back on and said the same thing. Isn't that the coolest thing?
Isn't it? Well, we talked about it, and thank you for the call, Willie, John from Connecticut. I know I call him both things. Well, he only calls in as John from Connecticut, then he's Willie Fix It, and so I gravitate between the two. We talked about it beforehand because we knew that Leah had a shoddy connection. So there was that, and thank you for the call, Willie John. Thank you. Shots fired. Listen, I was hoping, to be honest, even though I know that they're not watching tonight probably, but I was hoping that, oh man, can you imagine if Ben Davidson had called in? Someone had said, hey, you got to call in. They had made a comment. I mean, there was no ad hoc. Well, I mean, they made a little bit of there's a little bit of a barb at Jimmy Corsetti there. But, like I said, it gets heated out there. I'd still like to be able to compare and contrast all this stuff, because I know quite a few of you out there are preparing for a geophysical excursion in the poles, geophysical, a geomagnetic, or anything like that, even though I one way or another, if we're seeing that there is some sort of a weakening of the magnetic field of Earth, if you believe that Earth has a magnetic field protecting it, of course, because there's those people too. It's just so many camps. But yeah, this will definitely add for excitement value going down the line, because I still want to talk to all those people. Robert Sepper has gotten into, public back and forths with people like Jimmy on things like the Richat structure and the location of Atlantis. And then there is, everybody's always, I don't know who's friends with whom. And I'm the type that wants to talk to everybody. So every once in a while I'll ask, somebody a question and about somebody else that is very honest and whatever. And suddenly it's just like, oh, heads go red and steam coming out of the ears. Is that all right? Shouldn't have asked. It's like one big Italian family. Everybody getting into a fight at a wedding because of where they were placed in the seating arrangements. That's why Lauren and I opted for a buffet style at our wedding, by the way. You guys sit wherever the hell you want. You get up and you eat whenever you want. Sit wherever you want. Okay? I'm not having a 30-year cold shoulder because you were placed by the door away from somebody else and some other cousin that you don't like is closest to the bride. It's the same thing everywhere else. 561, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, Frank, how's your night?
Oh, it's going all right. Who's this, Walt?
Yes, sir, it is.
Go ahead.
Well, I was listening to your guest, and I'm quite intrigued, and I actually have a few things to add.
Go ahead.
So have you ever heard of a guy named Graham Hancock?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, that's where my journey started. And it's going to dovetail into what your guest was saying and then go on to the electric universe and then go on to suspicious observers. You interested?
Well, if you can tie it together, pretty succinctly, we don't have more than 11 minutes left in the show, and I'd like to take one or two more calls. So go ahead.
Okay, Reader's Digest version. Okay, you have great monuments that were created by man, and they orientate to due north and to constellations that they mimic from aerial views.
Like the Sphinx and the pyramids.
Right. Well, the three pyramids of Giza are similar to the Orion constellation with the Nile that mimics our galaxy with the Orion's belt, and it aligns 10,500 BC due north. Okay, and then you have, which was built in 2000 to 3000 BC. Then you have Angkor Wat, which is 700 AD to 900, and that was built on the constellation Draco, which is on the spring equinox. It orientates to that at 10,500 BC. So what actually happened 10,500 BC, which was typically what you call the Younger Dryas era, but that's not really what it is. It's called the Gothenburg event, and prior to that was something what you know as the China or the Noah event. So the China, the Gothenburg, Heliopolis, Lake Mungo, Mono Lake, Machamp 1 and Machamp 2 are all in succession in 6,000 year increments. So this goes way back, and it is actually due to our sun's magnetic field and actually our impact from the galactic sheet.
Isn't there a little bit more to that there is something every 6,000 years, but 12,000 is a bigger event? It's like almost like 6,000 is like a mini halftime between 12,000 year events or something like that.
Of course, and then if you take the Glomar Challenger and the Glomar Deep, the Glomar Challenger did concentric boreholes from the mid-Atlantic ridge out. Okay. And what they found out is that the pole was not really in the North Pole. It was in India. It was in Russia. It was in Canada. It was many different places over time period, because the magma orientates to magnetic north because of the iron content. So you have compasses that are actually in rock. So this has happened many times before. It's geologic, but it actually is influenced by our galactic sheet, which our planetary system is affected, including our sun. And most people think as the Younger Dryas there, when the woolly mammoth and the saber-toothed tiger were annihilated, was from an impactor. Well, yes and no. What was the impactor? Well, there's something called aluminum-60,
Okay.
which is only from
We got to get to the conclusion now, Walt.
conclusion is that our sun micronovas every 12,000 years, and we're part of that actual scene right now.
But in the and real quick as a follow up, but in the in between, you do believe that there was also some sort of a impact from a comet or something like that?
No, that impactor was aluminum 60, and aluminum 60 is an isotope only developed in a plasma furnace.
So
where's the closest plasma furnace?
Okay, so the impact theory is the impact of a shot from the sun.
That's correct.
Okay, well, I at least understand it's a cogent timeline of events, and I understand what the theory is. So for someone like me to put that together, I appreciate you for putting that together, Walt. Now I listened to I've heard so many Graham Hancock interviews over the years, going back to the 90s when Fingerprints of the Gods came out, and it's and then everything in modern time, his duo work with Randall Carlson on with Joe Rogan, that made a big impact on the internet about 6-7 years ago, whenever the hell that was. So I like seeing these things circulate a little bit more, and now it's just so easy for so many more people to comment on it and provide commentary, and then the comment sections are all over the place. So there's commenting all over the place, and I love it.
If you want to get into the basic astrophysics of it, you follow Ben Davidson and his work on suspicious observers, and he gives a daily report. But it also dovetails into what was done by Hancock in Heaven's Mirror, his book Heaven's Mirror, which actually went over precession, went over the.
Well, what I got to do, Walt, what I would have to do is, I'd love to have. Obviously, I'd have to bring. I'd love to bring Ben Davidson back one day. There's so many people that come at this from different angles now. It's almost like setting up the one thing I don't want to do over time, and thanks for the call, I want to take a couple more. It's almost like setting up a circular firing squad, and I don't want to cause any friction, but I just want to, I really want to see how this all wins out. Is there something that wins out? Everybody believes that their theory wins out. Is there anybody out there that is in any way, shape, or form still able to be influenced by new information? Is it possible? Is it at all possible? I wonder about that. Thad, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, Frank.
Hey.
I just want to really record this day. It's a very important day.
Okay.
It's the day that you were able to take calls while you had a guest on. This is so big.
This is a big day. It really was. And I you know what? It's just going to add an element to everything. You know what it's also going to do is it's going to relieve me of a lot of writing burdens. I can have a couple of really great questions, and obviously the good questions always spawn their own follow-ups naturally, but the fact that we can always say, okay, well, you know what, 25 minutes we can set aside to see what the audience has for us, that's a really fun tool to use now.
It's such a big deal for you, man. You've been struggling with it for so long. I'm just so happy
It is a struggle.
What a great day.
Yeah, it is. Well, thank you for calling in and toasting to us all. We're all going to make out on this one. Is there anything else you want to say, Thad?
Nope. Love your show.
All right.
Have a great night.
Thank you, brother. Have a good one. Oh, I like it. That's it. It's the day that will live, not in infamy. The 26th. You know what's going to happen, right? The next time we try it, I'm going to get... What's that, caller? It's going to happen eventually. Nothing is ever foolproof. So let's just celebrate the victories when they are here. 610, you're on the air.
Hey, I just wanted to call and say I love your show, and hi from Pennsylvania.
Hey now, from Pennsylvania. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I was in the chat room and everybody was like, well, just call in. I don't have no argument for you guys, but I just want to say that I love your show. And hey, thank you for what you do.
No problem. Who are you in the chat room?
I am JL in the chat room.
JL. Okay. Everybody look out for in the YouTube chat or where?
No, yeah, my handle's JL right there. So I don't have a YouTube channel or anything like that. But
all right.
Just a random citizen of the United States just calling in saying, hey, thank you. And your conversations are really interesting.
Well, thank you. I hope we keep getting better with that, JL. Everybody look out for JL in the chat room. Give her hell, okay? There you go.
Thanks, guys.
All
Bye.
Right. Have a good one. You see, someone just said, what the hell with it? I'm going for it. All right, one last call for the evening. 314 from St. Louis. Go ahead.
Hey, good evening. How you doing?
Good evening.
Hey, I love the job that Musk and Doge are doing.
Okay.
So I work for a corporation, and in our office building directly next to us is a Social Security office, and there's supposed to be about 300 people that work in that office. And it's always empty. Like there's barely ever any people in it. And I once ended up talking to one of the guys from the Social Security office in the lobby. And he said that they had a system in which just 5 or 6 of them come in each day. Mm-hmm. And then they sign everyone in. So basically they only have to come in like once every 30 or 40 weekdays. Is that crazy or what?
And they're getting paid probably a full-time salary, no?
Oh yeah, of course they're all on salary.
See, this is what I'm talking about, and this is what has been getting suggested recently too. Why is it that the president is suggesting that there should be at least a 5 bullet point review every week of things that you accomplished on the job? And that is because the biggest underlying reason seems to be that even though there is nearly $1 trillion worth of fraud that is on the books with Social Security, that a lot of these so-called 2 million government workers how many of them are actually people? You know, how many of them are actually people? How many of them have jobs that are worthy of, then we have this where, you're in once every 30 days or something, but how many of them are actually people? That a check is going somewhere, money is being routed to someone to an account that supposedly belongs to a government employee. But does that person even exist? You just never know at this point.
Yeah, well, this is just employees like collecting their, I presume biweekly paycheck, but let's just say they're showing up, I don't know, once a month, something like that. I mean, there's supposed to be 300 people. And every day there's just 5 or 6 that come in to get everyone else signed in.
It's
But you know what else is amazing?
What?
What else is amazing is that I can make any bullshit cockamamie story.
Oh, you did?
Your narrative, and you'll believe it.
Well,
you're a fucking moron.
What are you talking about? This is what is happening right here. You made that up. Who cares if you made that up? This is the whole point. It's like I can make up something stupid too and say, oh, it wasn't real. Make up something like there's a scam. That's the whole thing's a scam. Who cares if you made it? What, you got me, you fucking idiot? Elon Musk reveals the reason why his "What did you do for work week" email. See, there's retards in Missouri. There's retards everywhere else. Doge head Elon Musk has revealed the most pressing reason why he instructed an email to be sent out this weekend to federal workers asking them to file a short. You know what the crazy thing about that call is? That for the minute that he was on with me, he was sane. He was sane. Like assessing how bad the situation is. I would never, somebody comes into the office once every 30 days to clock in for this. I would totally, that doesn't seem very outlandish at all. There's worse being uncovered, you fucking asshole. It's like he called in trying to get me, and he actually LARPed as a sane person for a minute and a half. Now we went back to just being just a friendless cocksucker. That's something else. Doge head Elon Musk had revealed the most pressing reason why he instructed an email to be sent out this weekend to federal workers asking them to file a short report explaining what they achieved last week. As we highlighted yesterday, Musk fired off the email adding that failure to respond would be taken as a resignation. In a follow-up post, Musk explained that it would become clear that so many workers are so lazy that they are not even checking their emails. In addition, he noted that there is a distinct possibility that many workers don't even exist. And federal paychecks are being siphoned off in a massive fraud scheme. Quote, in some cases, we believe non-existent people or the identities of dead people are being used to collect paychecks. In other words, there's outright fraud. Outright fraud. This is more, and this is what's on the books. That's what's being talked about right now. It's out in the open. And this is why little checks, it's almost like a CAPTCHA code. Okay. You want to understand what did you do this week memo is going out there. It's almost like a CAPTCHA code. Okay. Out of the 2 million people that are employed by this government, most who should never have been employed because the government doesn't have the authority to create these jobs. Out of the 2 million people who are employed by this government, can you please just prove that you're human? Because outside of that, most of you, what kind of jobs are you doing anyway? There's some people who are working diligently, who love their country. Unfortunately, they're caught in the crossfire of this. Got to go away. But to think that somebody might be showing up to, the so-called fabled scenario that's actually less egregious than what we're actually dealing with in real time. Well, that was sad. What a sad little cocksucker, I gotta say. Both Musk and Trump responded. Let's see here. Both Musk and Trump responded in classic fashion to the leftist outrage at the request for workers to take 2 minutes to send an email about their productivity. Those who don't take this email seriously will soon be furthering their career elsewhere. And it's good to hear about it. Here's Trump's comment on the whole thing.
Mr. President, can you clarify, hopefully once and for all, what your expectations are with this email to federal employees? What are you going to use that information for? And do you see it as voluntary, like OPM has said, or mandatory?
Yeah, well, it's somewhat voluntary, but it's also if you don't answer, I guess you get fired. What it really is do people exist? We have this massive government with millions of people, and nobody knows who's working for the government, who's not. So what they're doing is they're sending out a letter to everybody, and they're saying, what were the things you did last week? Mm-hmm. I guess they ask for 5. And if people are working, it's easy. I could tell you 5 things I did last week. I could tell you 5 things I did 6 weeks ago. Right?
Yeah, I know. 314 from St. Louis. Thank you. Just thank you. This was a very strong end to the show. All right, everybody. Let me make sure I get all the super chats in. That one guy says, awesome show as always, Frank. I personally don't ascribe to the theory that the earth is millions of years old, but interesting nonetheless. Well, I'm glad, because that's all that matters to me is interesting. So thank you for hanging out with me. Let's see. Over on Rumble, we've got Real Drew Morgan says, hit the effing like button. You're learning stuff. Literally costs you like 1/3 of a calorie in 2 seconds. No, less than 2 seconds to click a button, but thank you so much. Yes, hit like wherever you're at. Stephen Ellis says, I contacted Keto Brainz to ask how much I can use daily, and they said regularly use 3 scoops a day. Now I'm adding a scoop to my after lunch coffee. Really? I just put a scoop in my coffee in the morning. I'm gonna up it then. To hell with it. Who the hell knows where things are going to go with me? I'll be flying to the studio, literally. I won't even need a car anymore. Jay Semo says, great show. Cheers. This is all on Rumble. I appreciate you, Jay Semo. Thank you so much. And over on quitefrankly.tv, let's see what everybody's saying in the Pilled chat room, which is about to become alive with the sound of after hours. Going to the top, C. Blanche, thank you. IC says, hey, Frank, much love and respect from Scotland. Braves Piano, thank you. Jimmy Ed, Al Gore is wrong. C. Blanche again says, F. Al Gore. The Sentinel says, then God said, let the water beneath the sky be gathered into the ocean so that the dry land will emerge. And so it was, and God named the dry land earth and the water seas. Water covered Kansas, and there's an ocean fossils in our university museums, a fish within a fish. That is Sentinel. C. Blanche says, opinions are like assholes and they all stink. Godspeed us all. Tennessee TCB says, check out Diamond and Rex Bear on Leak Project's YouTube channel. He's been covering this stuff for years. Jimmy Ed says, prevention is the best medicine. I know. It'd be great to prevent everything, wouldn't it? Sean Joe, Safety Net says, good job, Frank. One love, Frankly family. Only Lynn again. Let's see here. Amethyst Cat says, congratulations, Frank. You leveled up. Stephen and Lori, happy to hear Aurora is feeling better, and many thanks for Keto Brain samples. You got it, Stephen and Lori. Sentinel, if you want moderate descent, remember you asked for it. Oh, hey, why not? I would love it. I'd love to have people call in and talk to guests all the time. And I shouldn't say it's not in the history of the show. The first in the history of this particular setup, which is big, because the fact that we had Diamond and Leah on the screen on video and the audio is being fed in from Skype, that is a very big thing. Because as you know, the last couple of Halloweens when we had Dr. Albert Taylor on, he calls in through cell phone on Skype. So I was just able to take some of your calls there by merging Skype calls together. That's easy. But most people I have, appearing on video, I don't want to interrupt that. And it's very hard to route the audio without making some alterations to the hardware over here, which I don't want to do. So this worked out. The Sentinel, thank you. Thank you so much again. Jimmy Ed says, as always, a fantastic show. Thank you, Frank, and happy Wednesday. Yes, happy to you all. And that's it for tonight, ladies and gents. What do we have in the after hours? Since you asked, here it is. Tonight, Shane Cashman with Richie McGinnis, Long Island's Nightmare Experiments, Jason Burmis with Larry Hancock, Reconsidering Oswald, Ben Davidson, the Earth Disaster Documentary. This John Carroll grabbed all this stuff. Art Bell with Kevin Randall and Linda Moulton Howe on the back end, the Roswell Truth. So that's all after this show ends in just a couple of seconds on quitefrankly.tv. Hang out with a lot of great people in the chat room and have a nice group viewing. We will talk to you soon. Good night.
I'll catch you on the flip side.